is Dr. Kavita Krishnan from Healing Synergy LLC. Welcome to another vlog. Today I'm going to talk about dressing during the winter months. I know this can be sometimes quite a challenging or frustrating time when you're trying to get your child to be dressed, and it becomes a challenge at home because of the different kinds of textures and layers that you have to layer them up depending on where you are in the States. I'm in North Carolina, so it's kind of minimal, the amount of layers, but I know those of you who are in areas where there's snow right now, you probably need to layer up your kids for a very good reason. So a couple of areas that we're going to touch on are tips on what to look out for. For instance, when you're putting on your garments, let's think about this. You're going to put on your undergarments, a shirt, a blouse, and then you're going to have a coat. You're going to have long pants or skirt. You're going to have your hat. You're going to have your scarf. You're going to have different kinds of socks, maybe a thicker pair of socks, and then shoes on. And each of these areas can become a challenge. To start with, tip number one is to know the kind of clothing or fabrics that your children are willing or gravitate to, or will run the opposite direction. For instance, if you have clothing that's woolen in nature, there's some children who will not take to it very well. So it may look very pretty, but it may not be the kind of fabric that your child system can take. And one of the things that you will notice immediately is them scratching, or they constantly pulling off the hat, or if you have like a scarf, they'll be kind of scratching around their neck. You know, those are the signs where, okay, this is getting very irritable for them. And again, the analogy is it's like scratching down a chalkboard, right? So take a look at the kind of fabric that's available. And this is also with coats, where sometimes, you want to have a zipper up the neck to cover up the neck, and that gets a little too much for these children. So let's talk about fabric. So understand the kind of fabrics that your children like or will not like to use. Wool is definitely not one that the children that I've worked with gravitate towards. They run the opposite direction. And if you do put it on them, the next time they will run the opposite direction again, or give like a major challenge to you. So that's one. So understand the fabric. Make sure there are no seams in the clothing. So this comes from everything from the undergarments, the socks that you have, or t-shirts that you have. We have seamless t-shirts that you can now purchase, I believe, in Walmart and Target. And if you need to find other resources for clothing, in my website, under the About section, under affiliated resources, you can go to Fun and Function, and also the National Autism Society, National Autism website, which is on also linked in. You can find clothing there. So these clothing have been made for children who have tactile issues. Those clothing need to be on their body, right? So you don't have the seams, you don't have the tags. The next important component would be compression. So you have compression t-shirts. And why are compression t-shirts and compression undergarments useful? Because they give you that snug feeling, and so it provides both the tactile and proprioceptive feedback. I always provide it as an analogy. It's like wearing either a swimsuit or what cyclists use, and parents seem to understand the concept of that. So you have a nice compression on the body, and so the child's system, firstly, is awoken. Secondly, because of that nice firm compression around their body, it is very calming to their system as well. And now when you put the other pieces of material on top, say a t-shirt that you like, a shirt, or you have a jacket on, it is not as aversive because the foundation is now covered for them. So that is one of the tips of compression t-shirts. And now when you're using the jacket, for many of these jackets that you use, you want to pay attention to what touches their skin, especially at the wrist. And sometimes the material is uncomfortable at the wrist. Also, when you pull up the zipper, it comes around the neck. And depending on the material, that can be really annoying to these kids because, it might be a little thread that's sticking out and touching them. And, if you imagine it, you have the thread here and you're moving your head and talking and it keeps touching and tapping. And these kids it's cumulative effect. And then you have a meltdown because they're not modulated. They're no longer, they become dysregulated basically. And so they're not going to like that. So pay attention to that. And one other thing that I would do before putting on the clothing is the sandwich exercise I do with the kids that I see. That is compression. And what you can have is like sandwich between two pillows, or if that's the first thing I tell my parents to do is as soon as a child wakes up and you go in to see them, say good morning, and then you provide a nice firm compression. Most children like it. You can roll either a ball over them. You don't have a ball, that's fine. You can take a cushion and you can kind of, this is my hand, you can put the cushion over their body. Right? So it's like a firm massage that you're providing them. Most children like it. Another tip with that is make sure if this is something very brand new to them, they're watching you, they're looking at you. So don't turn them around just yet. Keep them looking at you while they're laying supine or on their back, and you provide a compression. And most children like it. If they want to hold a pillow as you're doing it, let them do that, because some of these kids who are overly aroused need to have some control, and that's fine. Let them do that, because what you're doing is you're warming up that system. You're providing them that deep compression, so it's very calming to their system to start with. Also, if you are going to have to dress your child, start early. You don't want to rush your child through a task that's already very stressful to them, right? So you're going to tell them like, hey, we're going to be using these clothing. If you can, maybe you can put out these clothings or bring out these clothings like the night before, so they are aware of what they need to use. So you're also giving them some time to process this information. Like, remember, we have this shirt, this pants, socks, and tell them you can start putting these items on, help them through. Some kids will also have motor planning difficulties, so work through them. And if they're having issues, start grading the activity where you can help them put their arm through and the whole rest of it up. So the compression is really good. For some, also the other area is temperature. Some of these kids are very temperature sensitive. So you may have to look at the clothing and decide, if this is too much for them at one time. So making sure they don't get overheated in it, because if they get hot, you start seeing them getting flushed. It might be because it's too much for their system at one time. Socks, I've seen a lot of kids pull or throw their shoes away, and socks. Again, it could be because of the seams. Because of the seam in the socks. So make sure you can get seamless socks, seamless underwear, seamless undershirt. Again, because you're providing the foundation that's more comfortable to their sensory system. If you can do that, that would be the first step. Second is to start early with the dressing process. Third, walk them through the process, and hopefully you've already beforehand worked out what kind of clothing is or fabrics that these kids can adjust to. So even if they get gifts or you're purchasing new clothing, just make sure these are not woolen. Or what you can do, and I usually tell parents, is to bring them with you when they're doing shopping, if you can, and let them have a feel of it. They will tell you immediately if they can tolerate or cannot tolerate these clothings. So again, a couple of pointers just for you to remember. The takeaway is you want to provide compression at the start of the day, so that the body is warmed up. Know the kind of textured fabrics that your child can use. Make sure there are no seams and tags in your clothing, especially if your children are tactile sensitive. Help them through, or help them through with putting your hands through the clothing or feet through the clothing, and then they can work the rest of the process of putting on their clothing. If you have snaps or zippers, if you can have attachments to give them more support to pull because they might not have the fine motor control just yet, that would be very helpful. And snaps and zippers sometimes have sound, or when the clothes are rubbing. And I say this because I've had a child who would cover her ears while getting dressed. And then we realized it was the one fabric over another that was rubbing, and she couldn't tolerate that sound. So again, pay attention to your kids. Maybe they need a noise canceling headphone. So give the compression, the noise canceling headphones. Making sure there's no tags, seams. Definitely number one. Compression t-shirt, compression undergarments as well for them. For hygiene's sake and breathability, when they get back home, get them out of it. Get the system warmed up, but when you're going out, you can provide them. I have, as a rule of thumb, just to start with, it's 2 hours on, 2 hours off, if possible. If they're at school, let them have it on, but during like weekends when you can monitor it better, 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and then you can work on those times, especially for undergarments so that we don't have any infection issues. So we want to watch that. All right. I will get back to you guys with more tips the next time. If you like to know any areas of interest to you, please send me an email or drop an email. And I would appreciate it if you like what you've heard today to give me a thumbs up on my YouTube channel. Appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye.